Good morning. This is your morning devotion from the Elim Church, Sunderland. My name is Granville. Story is told of Winston Churchill that he visited his own old school at Eton, and he was invited onto the platform, and he sat there on the platform, and then he was invited to speak to the school, to give them some words of wisdom. And so he stood up and shuffled to the rostrum to speak. And he said this, looking out across the gathered school: never give up. And then he said again, never, never give up. And he said once more, never, 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 never give up, and turned around and sat back down. The school got his message because his life was an example of never giving up. The Bible gives us an account in the book of Numbers that the Israelites, the nation of Israel, are now on the verge of entering into the promised land, on the verge of entering into Canaan, to take possession of the land that God had promised. He declared was theirs. It was their promise. They'd been hundreds of years of bondage in Egypt, and by a mighty hand of God they had been freed, led by Moses. And now they're on the edge of the wilderness of Paran. And the word Paran means beautiful. Beautiful place to be in. They're on the edge of receiving the promises. They're on the edge of taking possession of what God has promised. But they stop. And Moses, if you read Numbers 13 and the first 3 verses, Moses says this to the people: and the Lord said to Moses, send men to spy out the land of Canaan, which I give to the people of Israel. From each tribe of their fathers shall you send a man, every one a leader amongst them. So Moses selected 12 men, one from each tribe of Israel. And the 12 men were sent over into Canaan to have a look at their possession. The Bible says to spy out the land, to see what was there. And soon they came back. And Moses and Aaron and the people waited with bated breath to hear what they had seen. And 10 of the spies gave a bad report. There's giants there. There are problems there. Oh, there's awful difficulties there. And then 2 men, Joshua and Caleb in particularly, stood in front of the people and said, listen, that's a bad report. It's a land overflowing. It's a land of abundance. It's a fruitful land. It's a good land. Yes, we'll have to fight for it, but it's a good land. But sadly, in chapter 14, the people listened to the 10 spies, the bad report. They could have been there in days. That's how close they were. But they were condemned now to wander for 40 years in the wilderness because they failed to take hold of the promises. And Caleb in particularly went with them, although he believed in going in, was ready to go in, was prepared. He was condemned to wander with this group of mourning, complaining, miserable people. And he suffered all that they'd suffered for 40 years until finally they came to Canaan by a different route. And it says of Caleb that Caleb was allocated the city of Jebus, which is now modern Jerusalem, as his promise. And he went up and he took it. It was his promise. God had said it was his, but he still had to fight for it. He didn't give in, but he took what God had promised. Even after 40 years of the moaning, miserable lot of people that he'd been with, he took possession of what God had promised. Listen, Christian friend, Jesus didn't promise us an easy time. Jesus said it would be difficult. Jesus said we would have tribulation. But his promise to us is that he'd be with us. Listen to what John 16:33 says. I have told you these things so that in me you may have perfect peace. In the world you have tribulation and distress and suffering. But be courageous, be confident, be undaunted, be filled with joy. I have overcome the world. My conquest is accomplished. My victory abiding. Dear friend, don't give up. Take possession of the promises of Jesus. They are yours, believer. Don't give up. Trust what God has said through Jesus. He's overcome the world. God bless you.